Hey folks, we're back at IamDeveloper.live. My name's Nick Taylor, your host, and today I am hanging out with Emmett Naughton, who is not too far across the border from me. Emmett, how you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, not that far unless you get stopped at the border.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
which I haven't had too much trouble. We went to over the summer. We went up to Park Safari,
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
um, that was a fun time. And the border just let us in, and I was like, "That's it." Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
uh,
the questions are like, are you nice? Are you a good person? All right, you can come to Canada.
yeah,
So,
well, I think it's some of it is like, "Oh, you have kids in the car. You're going to Park
yeah.
Safari. Cool. Like, go do your thing." It's not like me sneaking over the border to play like a rock and roll show or something like that. So
Yeah. The secret life of Emmett. We're gonna get into
yeah,
a bit about who you are. Potentially, he is a secret rock band that he's got on the go. Who knows? So, yeah, I guess for folks that might not know who you are, Emmett, mind just giving kind of like a short like who you are, and then we're definitely gonna dig into this more and talk about like, your trajectory as a career changer. But yeah, let's just start off with who is this Emmett?
yeah. So it's been about 6 years now of teaching myself web development and building stuff online, and all while managing full time work and full time family, and trying to um, make that transition as smooth as possible for my family, which is we'll get into more this year. But this year's been
Yeah.
a roller coaster. But yeah, I mean, I've had full time jobs. I've done everything from line cook, dishwasher. I worked at the bus factory that I call it. We have a we have a factory that makes city buses for New York City and Philadelphia
Okay,
up here.
a literal bus factory. I
Literal
thought
bus
this was a
factory. Yeah.
okay. I thought
No,
this was a
no,
restaurant for a second.
no. Yeah. So, assembling city buses that people ride on every day. Um,
Okay.
and I've also worked at a chandelier factory. I made chandeliers for 2.5 years
Okay.
before becoming a janitor at the hospital. So it's been, um, there's no job that I find um, bad enough to do. At the end of the day, it's all paychecks and keeping the lights on. Um,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you're mentioning the ER, so I guess like that's kind of like our, I guess, not clickbaity title, well maybe kind of clickbaity, janitor, software engineer. But so
yeah,
you worked in the ER in your hometown, I'm guessing. Is that where it was?
yeah. So I grew up over in Burlington, Vermont, and then moved to Plattsburgh, New York. Not a lot of
Okay.
tech jobs here, which was like I needed a job to make ends meet, and then so I started off as a janitor at the local hospital. Paid
Okay.
benefits. It was full time, and I worked evenings, which so it was 3 p.m. to 11:30, and then basically the benefit of that job was I could listen to podcasts. They didn't care
Okay.
that you had your headphones in. They sort of gave you like an assignment, an area of the hospital to clean. Um, and then from there, like it was podcasts. It
Okay.
was, I discovered Code Newbies that way. Code Newbies led to Quincy Larson for Free Code Camp.
Okay.
And then from Free Code Camp, building projects, and then learning to network on Twitter. Um, being remote, I couldn't just go to a local meetup like everyone tells you to do as an early career changer. Is just go to a meetup. You'll meet like a founder or something, and then you'll get a job.
Yeah.
It's like it's the easiest thing to do, and it's like the nearest tech meetup for me is 90 minutes away.
Yeah.
Like and they're well, just go. Like you're not dedicated enough. It's like but this is all coming from people that don't have kids, aren't the sole provider for their family, like
Okay.
all this other stuff. So I got a lot of criticism when I started this career transition from like, you're not working hard enough. You're
Okay.
not hustling hard enough, which is like, it's wild to think about, but that's, it happens. There's people that think you're not working hard enough and they don't know your day-to-day life from, your Twitter profile.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, honestly, social media, I kind of think of like the Instagram effect. It's like, oh, look at me, I woke up looking perfect. My breakfast is all ready. This is what I eat every day. 20 grams of protein, blah blah blah. Life is perfect, and it's definitely not. Like, I mean, I don't post a ton on Instagram, but like when I do, it's not like I'm gonna post low points. It's like, hey, I rebuilt the rink for my daughter in the backyard, or like, that was a good workout, or whatever. But
It's like your wins. It's literally just like, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win
yeah,
type. So
yeah,
but
no,
yeah, so
exactly.
the transition into the ER was very interesting. So um, it was about 2 years of janitor work, working 3 to 11:30, coming home like midnight, going to bed, getting up, 6:30, 7 a.m. because kids, and they need to be, and they don't care that you are up till 1 in the morning. Um,
Yeah,
they're up, they're ready to go. But that also, that all that morning time before work gave me time to learn code, do tutorials, sort of build while I wasn't at work, and then like the evening was like throw on the podcast, um, throw in your headphones, and just go to work and learn learn some, even just like tips or tricks about
yeah,
um, what I'm current projects I'm working on, and you know it also gave me the time to tweet out stuff that I learned, and that's sort of how I grew my Twitter following too. Is
yeah.
I was tweeting at 10 o'clock at night at work on like my last break, being like, "This is what I learned from this podcast episode. Check it out." Um, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
uh, yeah, and then the transition into the ER. So I switched from being a janitor to patient registration and dealing with patients and all of their personal and medical information.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty, important stuff. You're in high stress high stress situations, dealing with nurses and communicating with ambulances and EMTs coming in with patients.
Okay.
Um, so making sure that the patient that's coming in on this ambulance, we have the right name, we have the right person, because that record, that their medical record will pop up if
Hmm.
they're, so, oh, the patient that you checked in says they're not allergic to a medication, we gave them that medication and they had an allergic reaction. Oops. Like that's a um
That's not good.
no,
Yeah.
no,
It's
bad.
not. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I just mean that, like, I laugh when I sometimes about serious stuff. I don't know why I do
Yeah.
that, but
um yeah, I
yeah.
think there's a lot of engineers out there that laugh at pretty terrible stuff. But yeah, so, and I did that throughout the pandemic too. So
Okay.
um if people want to say that there's not a more stressful, oh, engineering's the most stressful thing you'll ever do, it's like, no. I'm talking to patients that have COVID or are very sick,
Hmm.
and then even having to contact the loved ones and say, hey, your loved one tested positive for COVID, we need you to quarantine. Like, that's not a fun phone call to make. Like,
Yeah.
or I think in the hardest part about these job experiences for me is it's not necessarily the patient, it's the family members that have a harder time to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, so because they're the ones that aren't sick, they're concerned about their loved one, and they can be very, very angry about
Yeah.
situations that get, who's going to pay for this? Why is it taking so long? And all of that's out of my control, but I can do my best to mitigate that situation.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's definitely stressful. Like, and to your point about like, you know, jobs can be stressful for sure, but I don't. I mean, maybe there's some other jobs, not too many, maybe that are more stressful than working in an ER. I would definitely say being in a war zone is probably not enjoyable either. But you know, uh, yeah, there's a lot going on in the ER, and especially pandemic, like you said, it's like on top of normal times, which in ER is typically pretty busy to begin with. You have all of a sudden COVID. Like it's pretty brutal. And you know the fact that you've done all that, like, to me, like I've tweeted out before, but it's like if you can work in that environment, I think you can literally work anywhere. Like,
Yeah,
and it's
and I was also freelancing in this time as well. So
okay.
on top of, I was coming home from work, and then after the family went to bed, I was working on client projects as well. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so
So like sorry, to your point before about you were saying like people were saying you weren't hustling. I know hustling gets a bad there's a bad connotation associated to it with it, but you know, if you're trying to change something in your life, sometimes you got to put in that time, and you were doing that. You just might not have been hustling at a meetup or something like that whoever that person was that told you to do that. And also, fun fact: I've barely been to any meetups myself. Honestly, I've been to, I think, 2 JavaScript meetups in Montreal, and the first one I went to was in 2017. And and then I've been to a couple virtual ones, but like, you know, I don't I don't think that's necessarily a game changer in terms of landing something. Something
I,
I tell people. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it was when I started in like 2016.
Okay.
I think it was really like you go to the meetups, you make your connections, you do this in your like, you live in a small city that has a tech presence.
Hmm.
It's not your San Francisco, it's not your New York City, it's not your Miami,
Yeah.
but it's like there's tech companies in your city. There's probably a meetup somewhere.
Hmm.
There's probably a group of people that you could find that have similar tech interests.
Yeah. No,
And
for sure.
like, is it bad advice if you're in those areas? No. Go to those meetups. Go make time for that. But I think someone with situations of being sort of rural rural America, rural Canada, like
Yeah.
my best the most time that I the best ROI, return on investment, is hanging out on Twitter and
Yeah.
taking every Zoom call that I could possibly take to meet people.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Um,
I just want to say one thing real quick. That James Q Quicken, a bunch of folks just rated the Twitch, so we got a few new guests. So
oh,
thanks for joining, everybody. But sorry, keep going on there, Emmett.
yeah, so yeah, it's taking every call. I was bringing my laptop to my lunch break to like hop on a Zoom call. I've done interviews in hospital cafeterias, which I probably shouldn't have been, but that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there. Or getting yelled at by a boss or manager for being on my cell phone responding to a Twitter thread. It's like, you know, and I mean that goes to how I landed my first full time engineering role. Is
Hmm.
um, and it's funny. So I was I was about to quit looking for tech jobs this time last year. It was
Yeah.
exactly this time last year. Um, I'd just gone through a 7 round interview at a big tech company, 7 hour and a half long meetings. And I got told I wasn't technical enough for the role. after the seventh
Yeah, that's
meeting.
pretty wild after 7 rounds. If you weren't what they were looking for, I would have assumed that would have kind of shown up in like the first three, maybe.
Yeah, so anyway, I was about to give up. I'm like, I'm not interviewing until the new year. It's fine.
Hmm.
And Kelly Vaughn reached out. It goes, "Do you want to interview at this thing I'm doing at Gavallo?" It's
Yeah.
like, sure. Like, I almost turned her down. I almost said no. Like, I remember on my phone I had no thanks, not at the moment written out,
Oh
and
yeah. No
I'm
way.
about to hit send. In you know, kids got me distracted. I come back 10 minutes later to that DM, and I'm like, no, absolutely, let's do this. Like, let's
Yeah.
interview, and then um, got the offer, put in my 2 weeks at the hospital, and I haven't been back to the hospital since. So,
Yeah, no, that's it's pretty amazing, and I don't know Kelly personally. I've chatted with her on Twitter and a few DMs because she was gonna swing by into Montreal where I'm from this summer, but plans didn't pan out. But from what I've seen of her online presence, she seems like good people, and from what you've told me about her, so I dropped the link to her Twitter if folks want to give her a follow. She's already got a ton of follows, but
yeah.
she's good people from what you're telling me.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, she's been supportive. She's written a book on how to freelance, which I helped use in, you know, just meeting people and setting calls up and being, how do you respond to a recruiter email? I mean, even
yeah.
that, like, that's a huge, just little tip that goes a long way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and I was at Gavallo for 4.5, 5 months.
Okay.
And this year's been has been wacky. Trying to raise money. Venture capital was not doing that in May and April.
Yeah.
So the company had to make some cuts. I got laid off, and then I leaned into my network.
Yeah.
Made
Yeah.
I made two tweets, a post on LinkedIn, and then um, and I went from layoff to job offer signed in 2 weeks in May. Which, if we
Okay.
remember, the market then, that was sort of like the market was like unsure about layoffs, and
Yeah.
then we started seeing layoffs start. It was like July.
Hmm.
I think is when we first saw um, the big companies starting to roll out layoffs or talking about layoffs. But anyway, so as full circle, one of the podcasts that I was listening to while I was a janitor
Yeah.
was Shop Talk Show
Yeah.
with Chris Coyer and Dave Rupert, and
yeah,
and
that's
I
a great show.
remember I have this memory of I was mowing my lawn, listening to Shop Talk Show, and most of it was all Latin to me when I first started. They're talking
Hmm.
about, and this was 2016, so a lot of WordPress stuff,
Yeah.
um, and all of that stuff. It was all Latin. It didn't make any sense to me. I didn't. Um, but there was this time where I was mowing my lawn, and I remember, oh, that's what they're talking about. That's how they do this thing, where it's like the language they were using started to make sense,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, this is working well. I'm on the right path. I know, you know, I'm going to keep going. And then back to May of this year,
Yeah.
Dave reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing at Luro. Do you want to interview and we'll talk?" And then I was there from May till mid October.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and once again, market being wonky,
hmm.
VC funding being belts being tight. Um,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my position was closed, but that's neither here nor there. And a lot of people want me to be upset about my journey, but it's like I joined 2 early stage startups. What is like? It's part of the game, and
Yeah. Well, I think to your point too, like you said, I mean, the markets aren't great right now, you know, and like to 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 get a little personal, like even Netlify yesterday we laid
yeah,
off people. It's public knowledge because it's on LinkedIn right now, so I don't. Hey, what's going on, Anthony? But you know, like even I mean, Netlify is a bigger startup, but like all companies are going through this, you know. So it's unfortunate, but yes, I did survive the layoffs, Anthony. Thank you for asking. Um, yeah, it's you know, it's not great when you know people you enjoy working with are let go, you know, because it's not necessarily a reflection on their work, you know, like in your case for those 2 jobs, you know, like it's I wouldn't say bad luck. It's just like you said, just it's the market right now, you know, and I know we're gonna talk about the job search and stuff, but Emmett is looking for work right now, so he's worked at 2 pretty cool startups. You know, markets are tough right now, but if you are hiring, definitely hit up Emmett. And also, if you're wondering, it's not his stomach grumbling sometimes. His dog is a little
yeah.
whiny right now. He was telling me before the stream. So,
It's literally every time I get on a call, they're like, I need something. So
yeah. So, yeah, no, Anthony in the chat saying, yeah, it's a bummer to hear about the Netlify layoffs, but also just saying in general, you know, like everywhere, it's just kind of carnage right now, you know, and
well, and that goes into I think a lot of um, the like marketing for a lot of these places were like, I know when I started for like boot camps and whatnot, it was like,
yeah,
oh, you'll get a job at Facebook and you get a job at Google and Microsoft, and like you'll be there forever. You can be there
yeah,
forever. They're not laying off. Things are great. You're making tons of money. It's like I can only imagine like you were promised this thing and it's just not true.
hmm
Like um, layoffs do happen. They're
yeah,
awful, and it's
yeah,
like the stability of work is sort of disappeared. I think like that myth of you will always be stable, it's not necessarily true.
yeah.
So
No, it's yeah, exactly. And I did go to university for my degree, but um, the the thing with boot camps, like people I've spoken to, uh, and I think Anthony went to a boot camp too. I can't remember which one, but you know, it's not cool to promise people that they're gonna get a job and like you know maybe it was a little different before the markets and stuff, but I think almost telling people that they're almost guaranteed a job is not really goodwill towards people, you know, and a lot of
and
people I've been speaking to like right now, like that's Emmett's stomach now. That's not his dog. That's his stomach. Um, but you know, like when I speak to people who are just like trying to land their first job or career changes right now, because like from my virtual coffee community or talking to people in the collab lab where I volunteer, it's like you I don't want to sugarcoat anything, you know, and saying it's like it's tough right now. There's a lot of people who are trying to land that first job, like a lot of people, and the pandemic kind of exacerbated that. Like everybody's gone remote, so everybody wants is looking for that first job that is remote, you know, and that's kind of like pretty tough right now. So you gotta really sell yourself in this sea of all these people, and it's unfortunate you have to do that. You know, like you almost have to be a marketing manager for yourself, and you know, I mean, but
well, that
yeah,
brings up Taylor Desson and all the stuff he's doing with Vaco in recruiting. Like um, he's all over the place creating content on how to get jobs, how to talk to recruiters. Like and that's an interesting thing too, is like how do you talk to these people that are getting you in front of hiring managers but aren't
hmm
technical? Like, um, well, and that's also I've had 4 jobs, I think 5 right now that have been frozen on me when I was mid interview process.
Okay.
So like I've
And that's
gotten
because of the market.
because of the market. They're like, we can't hire right now. We appreciate you going through our process. We'll be in touch once we decide to hire again.
Yeah.
Which is like, and thankfully I haven't had to do a ton of like coding challenges for these jobs because I think that would have been really tough. Like, oh, I spent 40 hours on this take home project
Yeah.
only to get like, submit it and get, oh no, we're not hiring right now. Like that just takes the
Yeah.
steam right out of the job hunt. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how is the job hunt going? I mean, you've had a couple of these where they've frozen it, like you told me on DMs a bit. Um, don't worry if folks are chatting in the back there. It's all good. Real life happens.
yeah. Yeah, job hunt's going, I think, okay considering everything. I'm still having interviews come in. I'm still finding places are still hiring,
Hmm.
um, which is like it's the hardest part right now is setting up interviews in a timely manner because
Yeah.
people are taking their vacations before Christmas and New Year's. They're finishing up projects and they're like, we'll talk to you mid-January. It's like, man, that's really far out. And I think that's sort of the market too, is like we're waiting on budgets. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, and it's
yeah,
also just in general. Sorry, I was answering something in the chat. Um, in Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's probably, yeah. I guess workforce reduction, that makes more sense. Tal, sorry. Uh, sorry, I got distracted with the chat. Yeah, the other thing too is like in general, like forget the markets and stuff for now. Like this time period is usually when hiring slows down, and then like it kind of kickstarts up again, like sometime in January after the holidays, for because there's a lot of folks that celebrate Christmas, and they take time off regardless, even if they don't celebrate Christmas. So there's that too,
there's companies that straight up shut down for
Okay.
the final 2 weeks of December.
Hmm.
I'm in one process now. They're like, we'd love to make the hiring decision before the new year, but they're not sure if they would want me to start before the new year because of paying for that 2 week shutdown before
Yeah.
I start. And it's like, okay, I would love to have a paycheck through the holidays.
Hmm.
But that's, in a lot of places I'm seeing now, they're just looking for contract engineers.
Okay.
Um, oh, this isn't a full, the posting says that it's a full-time role. You apply, you get on the call, and they're like, well, actually, it's a contract to hire. Depends on how well this project goes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um, which is, it's like, I can't rely on contract work as a parent of young kids. Like, that's not possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can see, I've heard of some places where it's like, hey, we'll take you on as a contractor, and if it seems to be going well, then maybe we'll hire you full time. But I also wonder sometimes too, if they look at contractors just so you're not paying like health insurance and all that stuff. I would assume it's probably more that too, like because there is a big cost to like when you take on a full-time employee or somebody that you're covering. You know what I mean? It's it's the insurance, it's like whatever other benefits you give, and then there's the ramping up that person, and so like typically you don't want to lose a new hire because it's a lot of money that gets invested into them, like even before they've been there a long time, so it's yeah, Tals is saying contract to hire is a dark hole. He's like been there, done that. So
Yeah, no, and like, it's also one of those things. It's like, I think if I was desperate enough,
hmm.
like, like, you know, banks coming for the house, my lights are being shut off, and I have a contract to hire role,
Yeah.
probably going to take it. Um, and that's and I think there's also a lot of companies that rely on contract to hire for the project.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. We are not going to move on at this time, even though the project went fine. Like
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
my,
Gotcha.
because then I'm stuck job hunting again, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
um, it'd be like I could do like the full-time freelance thing rather than the
Mhm.
contract to hire type deal.
Yeah.
Because then I'm
Uh,
the one picking the projects. I'm doing all, I'm in control of the destiny essentially.
yeah. Todd in the chat, Todd Libby, he's saying contract to hire is something he's never going to do again. So, um, you know, uh, it, yeah, I mean, going full, there's benefits to being a contractor versus an employee, but I've typically been an employee. When I worked at Dev2 slash forum there, I was a contractor, but it was just because the company was a US based company and they weren't set up financially to, not financially, but tax structure in terms of things. So like basically anybody outside the States was a contractor, but we still, so I didn't get health benefits. I had to do my private insurance and stuff, but I want to say I was treated like a full-time employee to some degree, but like on paper, I really was a contractor, and I didn't have a terrible experience with that. But that's the only time I've really been a contractor, aside from like doing small jobs when I owned my own company for years, where it's just doing friends' websites. But in the end, that just didn't make sense to me. It was too much time spent to actually make money off of it. So
Yeah,
um,
and the other thing I'm seeing is talking to recruiters is they want hybrid. They
mhm.
want they want people local to the central hub office.
Okay.
And they're like, "Oh, you're in New York State. You can come to New York City once a week." Like that's 5.5 hours away. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's
New York State and New York City are
they're
like,
different. They're different places. Like,
yeah. I'm in Montreal, and like I can be in New York State in an hour, but that's not New York City. It's like,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like they're like, and they just have no. When I tell them that, they're like, "What do you mean?" It's
yeah,
like, no, I'm 5 to 6 hours away from the central office. Like
yeah,
that's. I was like, "Are you going to pay for my commute time?" That just in like
yeah,
the shock on the recruiter's face is like, I'm like, is the company going to pay for me to commute 6 hours one day a
hmm,
week?
yeah.
Uh,
That would be a hard pass for me, unless it was like an off-site, like that's occasional or something.
right. If
But
it
yeah,
was, hey, come down to New York City for like our quarterly like lunch and dinner, like,
hmm,
okay, like I'll come hang out for that, but
yeah,
not. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
and
it's so many places are going hybrid, which
okay.
is um, you know, oh, Tuesday, Thursdays you can work from home, but we need you in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Um,
Yeah, I still find that funny, and just before I respond to that, Talvs in the chat was saying in terms of contract work, as long as you know what you're getting into, it's okay, but just know what it really is and adjust based on knowing that. And I think that's some good advice, because like I know as a contractor you can definitely make way more money, but there's a you just got to figure out what you want, I guess, like, and also it depends on, like having a family or not too, in some cases, like, if you're like 20, single and like, partying all the time, probably maybe doing contracting work, is a good move. I don't know. But, um, yeah,
yeah, it's a personal decision, right? To make
yeah,
to decide how you work, and that's just I've heard the horror stories, and as a dad, I just like financially, I'm like, it's more money, but if it's means in 3 months I'm going to have to do this hunt again
yeah,
or hunt out my next contract, like that's a lot of work. It's more work I feel like I'm working more now looking for work than I was
Okay.
as an employee.
Yeah. Uh, and I guess like in terms of like looking for work right now, like what like I know you've been interviewing a lot because we talk on DMs sometimes on Twitter or I still haven't figured out DMs on Mastodon. But
I haven't, no, I
I
haven't
think
either. And that's,
I think if you put the person's name as the first thing, or like their handle is the first thing before you toot, it's a DM, but it's not clear because I thought I sent a DM the other day, and then it's showing up on the timeline, so I'm not really sure. But anyways, that's
yeah, yeah,
uh,
there's a direct message like tab button,
yeah.
but
Who knows? Maybe it's just like yeah, it's a button, but it's still
it's,
just posting to the timeline. I don't know, but yeah. But in terms of the jobs, like I know you've applied to a bunch of places. You got some experience now. Like what have the actual interviews been like? You know, like you were saying, like uh, in one place there, you know, they did there's the hiring freeze that happens as you're going through the process. There's that, but like how have they
yeah,
been in general?
um, then there's been some, there was one where there was a hacker rank,
Okay.
which is like fine. They will need to judge coding ability. That's fine. I
Yeah.
passed the hacker rank. And then the next round of the interview was a 90-minute Zoom call where they watched me live code,
Okay.
which is like, but the hacker rank is supposed to show that I can code. And having somebody like look over your shoulder at every keystroke you do, like, that's not the job. Like, maybe it is some places. I don't know. Maybe you have your engineering manager looking over your shoulder for 8 hours
Yeah.
a day. I had another code challenge, which was done in a
Okay.
Google Doc.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I've done that
that's
before. It's a little weird.
I was like, but you know, they saw me typing on the call, and they're like, "We're not seeing you writing anything." I'm like, "I'm using a code pen to like get the syntax highlighting and
Yeah.
like to actually see the console logs that I'm writing." But yeah, I mean it's been pretty good, and I think this goes back off to the layoffs. Is I think a lot of companies may have frozen their hiring process and be like, maybe we
Hmm.
can get some of these very senior level people who are now looking for work
Hmm.
instead of sort of somebody who has experience in like the drive to put in the time, uh,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
will neither here nor there. You know, well,
Yeah. The thing with the because I've done live code. Well, I live code on Twitch, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. But like I've had to do interviews like that, and uh, I did a pairing session actually even at Netlify with my coworkers Eduardo and Matt. But I think it depends on how the company approaches it, you know, because like, you know, it's not, in my opinion, it's not so much like, hey, recruiter or like employee, me against you, you know, let's see if we can trip up this guy. It's not so much that that's not how I see it. I really think of it as okay, let's take a peek at this, let's discuss it, and you know, like really make it a collaborative thing in the way, and this doesn't happen everywhere, but this is what I
no,
try to do. Like when I've had to do these live coding things, I talk a bit just to relax myself as well, because even though I've been doing this forever, I still get nervous in interviews, which I think is a normal thing, potentially, hopefully. uh, but the yeah, it's to me it's really like you want to see how you would work with this people, and like and that's what I think is more important. But having said that, a lot of companies don't do it that way, you know, and I
right?
try to steer it that way if I can, if it's not, but because at the end of the day, like realistically, if you're working and you're given a problem, it's not going to be fixed in an hour or 45 minutes. You know, you're going to have like, hey, maybe, you know, have a good idea of like how we could approach this, but like if it's, it's not going to go to production after this like coding challenge, right? It's got to be
Right.
tested, uploaded.
After we sign
Yeah.
off the call, it's not going up. And
Yeah.
there's been some where it's been like a pair programming problem, which I really enjoy, because it's like there's times where it's like, oh, I forgot, is it slice or splice?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. But if,
Classic.
it's like, or it's like, oh, your answer is wrong because you used the wrong one. It's like, well,
Hmm.
that doesn't, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to be working with this person that I'm interviewing with.
Yeah.
So if I feel like we can't gel, and I feel like they're judging every keystroke, it's not going to
Yeah.
work out. Like,
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
um, and it's also one of those things, I'm not in the position to be like turning down job offers right now. Like, um, which I know that brings up a lot of like, oh, compare all your offers from some of the vices. It's like,
Hmm.
sometimes you only have that one. Like, you have that one job offer, and it's like, do I
Yeah.
wait for something and compare it, or do I just say yes and then get to work?
Yeah, no, I can definitely. I honestly can't relate. I've never been in the situation where I don't have, well, aside from landing my first job, but like, because I've typically not been in a situation where I'm out of work and need to grab something. It's usually been like, because there's different stress levels. Like when you have a job and you're looking for a new role, like I would say a lot of pressure's off you, because you can be like, yeah, that looks good, but nah, actually, you know what, it's not gonna work, and like you can kind of not necessarily pick of the litter maybe, but like you definitely have more options versus like when you've got to land something now, like, so I can definitely appreciate that, but that I just can't, I haven't experienced it myself yet, so sorry.
No, no, that's fine. And I think the biggest thing is just like mindset. We're going
Mm-hmm.
on we're going on 2 months of looking for work right now. And I got laid off. It was 2 to 3 weeks before um, Twitter Twitter's big layoffs, and then Meta. I
Okay.
think those happened like fairly close to each other, if I remember correctly. And like,
So I'm laughing in the chat. Todd's like, do I have to blast another hire Emmett, you cowards tweet? Yeah, you know what? Fire it off, Todd. Fire it off.
yeah,
Hashtag YOLO.
yeah,
Hashtag YOLO.
yeah, yeah. That's but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, are these companies going to be looking for all of these senior engineers that have just been laid off?
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Um, and I think it's potentially going to be a really tough 3 to 6 months of looking for a place to land, especially these new
Yeah.
hires. But it's not impossible. We saw in the virtual coffee community, people getting their first job offer, and that's
Yeah.
incredible. Like, it's nice to know that companies are still giving people chances and opportunities. And I'm seeing that in the Coder Dads community that I run too, is seeing people get their first job opportunity to, like, somebody who's worked their pants off to be here. Like, that's awesome. They've
Mm-hmm.
done all the right things, and then finally they're given an opportunity to prove themselves. And yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah. No, Aaron in the chat was saying, yeah, holiday season, it's rough too because things slow down. And yeah, shout out to Virtual Coffee, Todd. Virtual Coffee is my favorite community, honestly. Met a lot of good people there, including yourself. I can't remember if I met you on, I forget how we started talking, if it was just Twitter
I think it
or.
was through Twitter. I've actually, full transparency, I've just was let into Virtual Coffee after I got laid off in October. It's been something that I've
Okay.
been cheering alongside from, the sidelines for, because
Hmm.
I mean, it's an, like, I don't know. It feels like every time that I'm in one of the weekly check-ins, like we're just hanging out having coffee. Like
Yeah.
it's a friendly chat. There's um, no ego, no, um, we're there's no egos there, and we're all there to help each other out,
Hmm.
and it's like that should be the way. Like I wish virtual coffee was a place we could all work. It's like,
Yeah,
um,
no, yeah. If I could just do that, that would definitely be something fun to do for sure. Um, and yeah, and to your point too about just getting into the virtual coffee, just for folks who don't know what virtual coffee is, I'll drop a link to it. But it's not a gated community. It's the thing is, we slowed down letting in people, not because we're trying to gate them. It's just we're all volunteers, including myself, and so like it's because it's on a volunteer basis. We want the community to still scale properly, so we can't, like, if we let in 1,000 people, there's no way we could manage it. So that's the reason why it's not like, hey, you're on the VIP list, let's get you in kind of thing. But Emmett's VIP in my book. So anyways,
yeah,
yeah.
but again, it all goes back to cheering people on too, right?
Hmm.
Like, I think I get equally as pumped up seeing somebody land a new position or get their foot in the door into
Yeah.
whatever they want to do. It could be software, it could be customer support, it could just be like just given a shot to change their situation. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, seeing running coder dads community Slack channel for dads that code, like seeing people land their first job and be able to buy a house,
Hmm.
that's cool. Like
Oh yeah,
um
definitely.
like that's life changing.
Oh yeah,
Or
working in tech is definitely like, if you just think from a financial aspect, at least from what I've seen and experienced, it's like, it's game changing. It's kind of hard to have conversations about salary with people outside of tech because it's so,
yeah,
like, I have friends who are teachers, and stuff like, there's
yeah,
no way I'm gonna talk about salary with them because I know how underpaid teachers are. And just a side note, Todd in the chat was saying hit him up in Twitter DMs. He might have some leads for you. So
cool.
definitely get up over there. Yeah, and Anthony, I know, was a teacher. I can't remember, Anthony. I know you're a musician, but were you a music teacher? I can't remember if that was what your gig was. But yeah, like,
Yeah,
side note, but serious
it's
respect for teachers, seriously,
yeah,
and nurses, by the way, and anybody. I mean, doctors are great, but like, I think everybody knows doctors aren't the people that run the hospital. It's everybody else: nurses, orderlies, janitors. Like, it's everybody else. So.
yeah, and I mean that's something that I've come to appreciate working the laundry list of jobs that I've had is like those are really the jobs that it makes me feel almost guilty at some point that I get to be at my home desk and not coming home covered in
But
possibly a bacteria infection or like come home covered in I was a powder coating coder technician at the chandelier factory. I would come home
okay,
colored blue and purple and gold and silver, just like playing like just covered. It's
well, you'd be
like,
ready for Christmas. You just put a star on
yeah,
top of you, and there you go.
yeah. And I mean, we're talking chandeliers that cost $50,000.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
That's
Yeah.
we would furnish hotels basic as well. So like
Okay.
we do all of the bathroom fixtures for like some schwanky expensive hotel that probably software
Okay.
engineers would go to on a meetups.
Yeah, and like, I used to work in restaurants too before I went to university, and I had clothes that were just because I started off as a dishwasher, and then I was a line cook like yourself. And for people who've never worked in a kitchen, as soon as you have an air fryer, it's like your clothes just absorb it, and it doesn't matter how many times you wash it. And if you do work in a kitchen, never clean your kitchen clothes with any other clothing, because otherwise everything else is going to start smelling.
Well, everything you wash with your kitchen clothes are now your kitchen clothes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, just working from like an air conditioned office is
Oh
different
yeah.
than like kitchens or factory work where it's like I was working with industrial ovens at the Chandelier place. It's a
Yeah.
450-degree industrial oven. You, as soon as you open those doors, you're just covered in sweat. It's like,
Yeah, no,
um,
I'm laughing because Anthony's like, did you used to swing on the chandeliers? And now that's not what I have in my head, but I'm picturing you like Miley Cyrus swinging on a wrecking ball now. So now
it's
I've got some bad visuals in
that's
my head
that's
right now.
not that's not how I lost my job.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's yeah, it's but it's yeah the market's weird right now. Um,
Hmm.
Layoffs are happening, and I think the biggest thing for me is like patience. Um, I've done this twice this year. I've done the job hunt twice. And it's even like places that I've been interviewing. I was like, can you connect me with people that are hiring? And a lot of them are like, I can't because I don't, because we're not. So it's,
Hmm. Yeah. No, exactly. Sorry, I'm just Erin's saying she used to work as a bartender in college too, and I was just writing. I was a bus that I don't know why the role was this, but it was busboy slash bouncer, and your your clothes at the end of the night, they're covered in stuff, and like because you're kind of walking through like this. I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'7", so I'm walking through a sea of people, and and God knows what's on the floor. Whether people were throwing up or whatever, and then just like you got the dishes and stuff, and it's
oh
not
man.
as rough as a dishwasher. Like dishwasher, I remember just like digging my hands into the sink because like you're in a lot of cases you're wiping off people's food and stuff. And I mean the dishwasher is pretty fast. It's like one of those Hobart things. You pull it down
Yeah.
and it's like
It runs
five
the
5 minutes
cycle.
yeah, it's like so fast.
I
But
want one
yeah,
in my house because the amount of
yeah, yeah,
dishes that we do. Like, I would love just, you know, put a load in, hit the button, and 5 minutes later
yeah.
it's done. But
I mean, I know they're industrial grade, but I kind of wonder like why has well, I'm sure somebody super rich has maybe Hobarts in there because they probably have people doing their own dishes. But I feel like it would be something super practical. It would probably be more expensive for sure, but I guess the other thing too is because like like a dishwasher in the house is typically under the counter, and the Hobarts or what other brands they have, it's always like sitting on the counter, because you have to like lift it up and pull it down. So maybe it's just that too, but
yeah,
I don't know.
it's a rich people problem to have a industrial dishwasher in your kitchen. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have the
exactly.
counter space. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. That's why. Don't have the counter
yeah,
space, so
it's a
I'm
counter
okay.
space issue. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if we figured out the you know the washer and dryer for your clothes to fold themselves, like I'm in. Like I don't
Mhm.
care. Um,
Yeah.
but I had a conversation in Coder Dad. Somebody has industrial grade like laundromat washer dryer in their house
Oh,
because of
no way.
how much laundry they do, and I'm like that makes sense, but like
But still, like, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's kind of funny. Like, I mean, speaking of dishwashers, I know we're going way way off topic here, but like washing machines, like all the front loaders now, like that's what like the ones in the laundromats were, and then they made their way into the house because they're just. I don't know about you, but me as a kid, like you're trying to get over the
yeah.
over over the washing machine to try to get your stuff out. I don't even want to know how many kids like kind of fell in probably, but anyways, I digress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's been a lot of fun. it is almost time for school pickup. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's, the journey's been a long one, and I have experience now. I think that's the that's the tagline is, uh, and
Yeah.
I think it's just finding the right people that are hiring and
Hmm.
proving that I can do the job, and
Yeah.
um, those are two different things, unfortunately. It's
Yeah.
in some of the like the code challenges. I'm like, how is this gonna, like, the role was very front end focused that they were looking for, and there's like
Okay.
doing JavaScript loops to get the right value isn't sort of what's being asked in the role. So it's like the tests are
Yeah.
not suited for. Um,
Yeah. Well, the whole interviewing process is a whole other topic. But like, because I've had the privilege to be able to spend hours on doing take home tests and stuff, but I know not everybody can. But the thing too is like, it's weird that like, well, one, there's a lot of interview testing that probably the people that are giving those interviews probably can't pass themselves. There's that aspect. Like, I think one aspect of interviewing is like, hey, talk to the team. Is this something that we think is actually feasible? Because there's a lot of places where I would guess it probably isn't feasible if your own engineers can't do it. But it's also, it really varies between the companies. I think, there's definitely, like, I had a great experience at Netlify, and I mean, I love working there, but I've been to other places where there's this, because like Cirque du Soleil is in Montreal or just outside. So like there was one of the jobs there, or it was a company associated to it, but I had to write a full program, fully test it, and then talk about it. And I did it because I had time and I was interested. But it's kind of unfair, I think, in general, to provide that kind of test. But at the same time, you still want to gauge, like, can this person do the job? And it also depends at like what level, right? Like, it's one thing somebody super senior versus somebody starting off. Yeah, Talbs is saying too in the chat, interviewing is broken because like, and my coworker Jason Langsdorff said this before, but like, if you're hiring somebody who's starting off, it's like it should be known that they don't have a ton or barely any experience. Like, part of taking on that job is they learn things, and it's like, there's a lot of roles will be like, hey, entry role looking for 3 to 5 year, like, it's not an entry role then, you know what I mean? It's like,
I saw one job posting where it said that it was not an entry level,
mm-hmm.
but it didn't say it was a senior level, but it was asking for 15 years of a web application experience.
Okay.
I was like, okay.
Dog years or human
Yeah.
years?
I mean, either one. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, look back 15 years ago, it's like, what were the web apps? It's like, probably not. There were websites. It wasn't, I feel like the web application has been, at least the last 10, but not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, for sure. So there's that whole aspect too and stuff, but and I kind of want to bring it back to something you were talking about at the start, but like, like going to meetups, meeting people in the tech space, and I think meeting people in the industry you're going to work in is definitely important, but in my experience, like, I like, you know don't pigeonhole to like, like, I need to go to this meetup and that's it. Like, you speak to people like outside of, like, I can give examples because like I played rugby for years, so like I have this huge network of people from that, and it's like you could literally just be out talking to somebody and you're like, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, you do websites or something, and like, yeah, 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 and they're like, and then somebody will be like, hey, my buddy has this company or whatever. It doesn't mean you're gonna get the role, but it's like that kind of stuff doesn't, like, at a tech meetup, for sure everybody's going to be like, hey, I'm looking for work, or let's talk about JavaScript or Python or whatever the meetup is. But like my first job, I was very fortunate, but like I was doing internet technical support for about a year before I landed my first job. I was applying to tons of jobs. This is like a long time ago, but I was doing admin work. And then I was at rugby practice one night, and because it just, part of the thing is you just go for drinks after, because some good old rugby stereotypes. Sorry, but and my future boss was like, "Hey, you're looking for work, right?" And he's just like, uh, it's like, he's like, "Do you want to come work here?" And it was literally like he knew me from rugby and he trusted me because we like played on the field every weekend. Not to sound sports analogy tacky, but
No, but
he gave me a shot just based on that.
but it's like you showed that you're dependable by showing up every day to rugby practice or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He saw that you put in the work at the rugby stuff, and that stuff's all translatable over to, can this person show up to work every day?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And he 100% took a chance on me. He didn't know this is like 2002, and there was this language called Visual Basic. So and it was Visual Basic 6 at the time. He literally gave me a CD-ROM. Yes, those things still exist, people. And he said, "Here, just watch the tutorials on this weekend, and if you want the job, come in on Monday." Again, super fortunate to get that for sure, and I'll always be thankful to Bob Meunier for landing me that. But that kickstarted things for me. And this is why I'm saying, like, sure, go to the meetups and stuff, but like there's other places you never know. Like, you could just casually be talking to somebody. Like, it's not like you always have to say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for a job," but like you could be out for a coffee with some friends or whatever, and you just happen to mention it, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I know this other person," and for sure, this, you can amplify this on stuff like Twitter and stuff. Like, I mean, that's how we met. I'm always trying to see if there's roles for you and stuff too. But like, just the people in your life, you never know. It doesn't have to be always tech to find these
right.
roles necessarily.
And I think the other thing is, you never know where that connection or that one conversation could lead 6 months, a year in advance. Like, that goes back to me landing at Govalo. Is I knew Kelly for 2 or 3 years before we actually worked together. And I think it goes a long way to be like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to sort of like cultivate the garden, right? Is like,
Yeah.
and that goes back to like, digital garden online. And it's like, your network is also that, like, you have to build, you have to grow the garden, and you have to weed it too. There's people that will be toxic for you, that, can ruin your whole day. Just one tweet.
Yeah.
You could read one tweet and it just ruins your whole day. And then it's like, okay, I'm done for the day. I'm going to sign off. And then,
yeah. And there's the other thing too, because like I've been doing, like, because there's the 100 devs going on, and there's just a lot of career changers and new folks. So like I do these, like I have like 30-minute calls with people if they want to do it. And one of the things they mention to them too is because like I understand people are like, they want to land a job, but I try to also convey that, like, it shouldn't just be transactional, the relationship, in terms of like, "Oh, hey, Emmett, nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm looking for a job in tech. Can you hook me up?" You have to, you kind of have to build these relationships, like, but I understand people are trying to land a role. Like, I get it. There's an urgency to it too, but
well, it took me 5 years to go from, this is called janitor to software engineer, but it took me 5 years. It wasn't a overnight success. Like, there was relationships, there were calls, there were building relationships. And also, like, I think the other thing is sharing other people's work gets you really far in that. That goes to me sharing podcasts. Like, that got me my Treehouse subscription. I got that sponsored because of me networking and sharing stuff that was being done at Treehouse. um, and then sharing code newbies. And like code newbies is an incredibly welcoming environment for somebody that's doesn't know where to
Yeah.
go. Like I wasn't even
Yeah.
sure if coding was something I wanted to do, but um, it was something that doing sort of like the cost analysis of what I wanted to do. You need a laptop and internet. I got
Hmm.
that. It's um, there's a lot of other hobbies and jobs where it's like you need money and equipment.
Hmm.
It's like it's going back to sports. It's like if I wanted to start playing hockey, the amount of time and money I would need to buy all that stuff is just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And like it's kind of funny because I'm in Canada. I'm in Montreal, which is hockey town. Like I don't skate, or I barely skate, even though I'm building a rink in my backyard again. Uh, but like I'm convinced. Like I played soccer when I was younger, and I think I did like a year of t-ball, and I'm pretty convinced my parents put me in soccer because it's literally just a pair of cleats and maybe
Because
shin guards, versus like hockey equipment is like it could be like $1,000, and you're growing, and you have
and
to
that's a
buy new
season.
equipment.
That's a
Yeah.
season. It's not like
Skates too, they're like $300, I think, or I mean it depends, but
right.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, super expensive. And like, yeah, most of the sports I did were I guess cheaper because like
Yeah.
I even though I'm not that tall, I loved basketball in high school. And then rugby, it's cleats too, a mouth guard just so you don't need dental work potentially.
Right. But
It's,
it's not football pads. It's not,
yeah,
it's
I don't even know
like
how much football equipment costs, but
right. And but it's just like I did the cost analysis. It's like I have a laptop.
mhm.
I've I have my background's in electronics. Like I went to school for electronics,
Oh, okay, I didn't know
electrical
that.
engineering, and sort of the thing that pushed me to not pursue electronics was military contracts. Almost all of the jobs I was seeing was working for a defense contract. It's like
Hmm.
so very goodwill hunting of me, but it's like I'm not going to build the tracking device that goes on a bomb that blows something up.
Yeah,
Like,
you're better than You're better than bombs. You're better than bombs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, and all of that stuff was when I was getting out of school. That's what That's what my classmates were getting hired to do. Yeah, they were
Hmm.
making a ton of money, tons of money. Like, but it was like I couldn't morally do it. Like, I think, and that goes into a lot of the like job hunt stuff. Is like, what do you actually
Yeah,
want to build and work on? Like,
yeah,
um,
yeah. Because like, yeah, for sure. Like, if you're building software that's, I don't know, doing something nefarious, you might,
well, if I'm
you know,
building a
p-
keylogger for some like platform, it's like that sounds gross. Like,
yeah, yeah.
um,
No, no, for
you know,
sure. And like, obviously, people have different moral compasses, but yeah, I know what you mean. And I think I mean, we haven't really talked about it. Well, we kind of talked about it, but like, the people you work with is super important. Like, one thing, like every job I've ever had, maybe I've just been lucky, but I've always enjoyed working with the people that I was working with at jobs. Um, so
yeah,
there's
and you're
that
going to
too.
spend a lot of time with these people that you're working with,
Hmm.
if it's in
Yeah.
person or virtual. Like, I want to be able to like start my day knowing that if I have a problem or something's not working right, I can reach out and not feel like I'm going to get chewed out or, um, you know, torn apart, especially in like a stand up or something, because I didn't know how to do
Hmm.
something. Like, that's,
Yeah, no, that's definitely not cool. That definitely is already a red flag. But sometimes, you don't necessarily, because it's when you're interviewing. I mean, there's a limited amount of time you're with these people, and the same with them with you. So like, it's kind of always a gamble to some degree. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and I mean that goes to my interviews with Gavallo and Loro. Is they were like, show me a project, and
yeah,
I showed them a project that they were like, looks like you can code. Like, um, I mean, and Dave took a shot. He was like, "Do you know Vue?
yeah,
No. Do you know Prisma? No. Okay, you're hired. What?
yeah.
Like,
Okay, if you tell us one more thing you don't know, we're gonna bump the salary by 10,000 more.
what? Yeah, it's like, um,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of it comes down to like, there's a time, and like, yeah, 30-minute interview call. You don't have
Mhm.
time to like, what's company stand up like on,
Yeah.
after, you don't have time to ask those like, oh, you had an outage event. How does that get handled? You don't get to
Mhm.
ask those questions. It's like, you know,
Well, it
is it
depends. Like, because depending on how much time you have for interviewing and like how much rounds, like you definitely want to be asking questions. So if you can get questions out like that kind of stuff, or like do you test, or like what's the continuous integration like, or yeah, yeah, you definitely, it's definitely limited time, but you definitely want to be asking questions for sure if you can.
right? There's questions, but it's also like, I don't think you can get as specific as like, there was an outage on Monday. What is Tuesday stand up like?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
because
or
in
like what's a typical work week like, what are y'all working on right now, or just yeah, basically whatever comes to mind, but like there's a few things that can definitely help you kind of gauge things, but yeah, again, it's such a limited time. Like even if you had a few rounds and you ended up speaking 4 hours, or in total, that's still like 4 hours with people you don't really know, and vice
right,
versa, so you obviously hope it works out, but like there's just a lot that goes into interviewing, and it's like like to get a really good process going, I think you have to put a lot of thought into it. It's not just like, yeah, we got Emmett in 30 minutes, you go interview him, all right,
right. Let's pick the problem 10 minutes before the interview challenge. It's like,
yeah. And before we do that, let's make sure we don't read his resume, so when he tells us about stuff, we have no idea what he's talking about.
right, yeah, yeah. So you're gonna code in .NET and C sharp for the React position. Okay, like, um, luckily I haven't had any of those, but I've heard the stories of like, it's an old problem that they had written up, and they're like, you're going to use this code that's
Okay.
not being used anymore. Um,
Yeah. No, it's sorry, I'm just laughing. I missed Todd's comment before. He's saying Maine lobster's better than Canadian lobster. I can't really comment. I mean, I think Atlantic lobster from Canada, which is hard shelled, is pretty good, but I've had Maine lobster a few times. It's soft shelled, but I I honestly couldn't tell the difference, but that's also because I don't eat it that often. But anyways, just
yeah, Todd's going to have a lot of free flowing cash to
yeah, yeah. Well,
eating
Todd definitely
lobster.
has a Todd definitely
Yeah,
has some opinions about lobster. So, and I would classify him as a potential lobster or crustacean expert. So,
yeah.
uh,
Not a
I'll go with what
curmudgeon.
he says.
That's a different that's a different word to describe some people, but
Yeah, yeah,
not Todd. Yeah,
yeah.
crustacean expert. Yeah, we'll see him on oh god, what's that fishing show? It's like deadliest catch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Go get those snow crabs and what? I don't know. I feel like, is there snow lobsters? I feel like there should
yeah.
be. You know.
We do we know? Do we
Yeah,
know if there's snow lobsters or not?
yeah.
The ocean
Find out
ocean
for us,
needs.
Todd. Find out for us.
Yeah,
Go head up to the deep north there and go find us some snow lobster, Todd.
yeah. Find a new species of lobster we can eat. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, we're getting close to time here, but I'm gonna drop some more links again for where folks can follow you and stuff. We definitely don't have to end the conversation now. We still got like 15 minutes there, but um, are there? We didn't really talk about it, but I think you're looking more for front end based roles right now, or are you looking for full
Yeah,
stack as
I mean,
well, or what do you?
full stack front end. I'm actually been sort of toying with the idea of learning more back end
Okay.
stuff, because I feel like that is the skill that degrades the fastest if you're not doing it a lot. Because front end, you get the instant feedback of hot reloading and all of that fun stuff. So if anybody has any resources on leveling up back end, I had a
Yeah.
tweet earlier this week and I just said /squats to. But
Slash
yeah,
squats.
mostly yeah,
What do you mean? Like,
/squats is how you level up your you make the route for
oh, okay.
/squats. And
Oh, okay, gotcha. I
yeah,
either heard squats like leg squats or Sasquatch, and I was very confused. So, which are both interesting things in themselves, but okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah. You got to build the route. Um, so
Yeah, no,
uh,
I
so
would definitely say like yeah, working on like building out an API, definitely looking at like a lot of things are serverless now or like on the edge, like, and it's I'm not just saying this because I work at Netlify, but like lots of places like that allow you to just write Lambda functions or like edge function stuff. It's a quick way, as not a quick way, but it's like it's a good way, and a lot of platforms have this, including Vercel, Cloudflare, all these places. But
I know render's starting to roll that out too.
okay,
So
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of places that it lives on the system, not in the code base.
yeah, I'm just laughing at Tal's or no, Anthony. Sorry, he's saying you gotta yell squats when you do that. I'm laughing because like I work out a few times of the week in the morning, but squats are my favorite exercise. So I feel like next time I do them, I'm gonna be like squats. So that one's going out for you, Anthony.
Make sure that gets clipped.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so front end or full stack stuff. Okay. Is there? I'm assuming you're open to kind of anything, but like, is there like, are you more like a React dev right now, Vue, or you know a few of them, or you're
So
interested in a bunch, or
I'm interested in everything. Like that's the I think that's also sort of my problem too,
okay,
is I like a bit of everything. Um, it's like people are like, well, you have to pick, choose your fighter, React or Vue or whatever. And it's like whichever one, like you'll pay me, I'll do it. Like, um,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
got you, I
that's
got you.
working with Dave. It was like, hey, we're Vue. I don't know Vue. Well, I'll figure it out. And
Yeah, yeah.
um,
They're definitely not the same, but I think once you've got like some experience under your belt with a framework, yeah, I don't there's definitely differences between them for sure, but I think just having experience in one will be super beneficial even if you like if you've never done React but you were doing Vue, I think the lift won't be super huge. There's definitely some different concepts, but and
right.
you
Yeah, I
know
mean, I was all React before
okay.
um, working at Luro, and then um, I mean, all the concepts are those translate between languages for like very high level stuff of how you do stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but it's and also the nice thing is that a lot of the stuff that you come into in a job search is it's not greenfield. It's not like create
Yeah.
React app. It's like, oh no, we have a function that does that already. You just need to implement it in
Mhm.
this new feature or whatever. So I think um, that's also nice because I think it would be very hard to come into like a brand new project if you've never worked with it before.
Yeah, it's very rare. I've worked on like I think maybe 2 greenfield projects. Also, just to get the terminology out, if folks have never heard that, so greenfield is like brand new project. Brownfield is like existing project, and most things you're gonna work on will typically be what's been bringing in revenue, which is a brownfield project. So you know, and I like people always say like legacy code and stuff. The funny thing is like as soon as you code it, it's already legacy code. But I like how Ryan Florence, who's one of the co-founders of Remix, he had a tweet a few years ago, and it goes along the lines of something like it's not legacy code, it's revenue code, because that's the code that got you there, and that's what's
Yeah.
bringing in the Benjamins. You know what I mean? So or the what the heck's on $100 bill in Canada? The Queen, I think. I can't remember. I don't usually have
plastic,
$100.
your plastic money.
Yeah, but you can go surfing with it, just like they took a page out of Australia and made plastic money. But yeah, no, it's yeah, you're gonna be in older code bases typically. You know, you still doesn't mean you're not gonna make improvements to it, but that is the reality typically. And like that's like speaking of React, you know, like if you're in a mature React code base, you're probably gonna end up looking at class based, like, because like function components is what's most people do now. But like if you're in a legacy code base, you'll probably come across a lot of class based components.
Well,
And they're not terrible, but
that's funny because that was the project that I showed Kelly was
okay.
a class based component React app that I built. She's like, "That's old." I was like, "I know." Like that's, but it's at the time it was like, "This is all I have I can show you," because all my freelance work got taken down. So
Okay. Yeah.
client project, worked my pants off for it during the pandemic.
Okay.
3 months later, the company that we did it for got acquired by DocuSign, and they
Oh
nuked
yeah, I
the
remember
site.
you. I
Yeah,
think
they
you showed
nuked
it
the
to me
site,
before
so
it
I
got
couldn't.
nuked.
So in, I was wondering this time last year, I was getting rejected from jobs because they were going to the site that I had showed off on my resume, and
Okay.
I didn't realize that it got nuked.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm actually going to go check on this project. And then it was like, nope, we've moved to DocuSign. I was like, oh
Okay.
man, like,
Yeah. But
so
that's it. I mean, you learn from that, but like if it's projects you have in your GitHub repo, obviously you can still showcase them.
right. But a
But
lot of
I
my work has been behind like an
yeah.
NDA or whatever.
Okay,
So
if it's an NDA, that's a whole other thing. I was gonna say like if it was a project that wasn't behind an NDA, but like they nuked it, like if you took screenshots and you could talk through it,
yeah,
but definitely, yeah, definitely don't be pulling out screenshots from NDA stuff, for sure.
yeah, that's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
So
Well, yeah,
this
that's
has been
cool.
great.
So
This is a lot of fun. I'm glad you're doing this streaming stuff.
yeah,
And
it's I'm having fun doing it. You know, like I do a lot of live coding normally and stuff, but you know, I thought this was a really great conversation to have because I mean, hopefully it helps you out, but also like I know, like I was talking to folks in the collab lab where I volunteer. There's a lot of career changers there too and stuff. So I thought this could be helpful for other people too, maybe that are looking. Like I know you're already in tech now, but like just you know that whole process, you know, and it's
yeah,
it's been it's been
it's a
tough. I
slog.
know. Yeah.
It's an uphill battle, but it's I'd say that just the payoff's been incredible for like just mentally freeing and obviously financial for my family.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Cool. I'm gonna drop your links again one more time there, and yeah, folks. So Emmett's he's looking for front end work, also full stackish stuff. Hit him up on Twitter, LinkedIn. Check out his website. Honestly, from the conversations I've had with Emmett over like I feel like we've been talking for at least a year and a
It's
half
been
now.
longer than that, man. I think
Yeah,
it's been, I've been at this almost 6 years now, so
yeah, yeah. So
probably
definitely longer.
longer.
Yeah. So like, if you're wondering if Emmett can handle pressure, I mean, if you're working in an ER, picking up God knows what off the ground or dealing with the chaos in there, I can definitely guarantee that he can probably handle your stand up. So, so definitely show him some love on all the places where he's at. And yeah, Emmett, we'll be in touch still, obviously, as always, but best of luck on the job search, and yeah, keep me posted. Don't forget to hit up Todd in his DMs. He was saying he might have a few leads for you.
Yeah,
And
well,
yeah.
I'm heading there now, Todd. So get
All
ready.
right. All right. Yeah.
So
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And next week, I'm just gonna drop the schedule here. I'm trying to remember who's on. Let me take a quick peek here. I know we've got Ben Holmes from Astro next week on the 9th, I think. Is that all that? Okay. Yeah, that's all we got going on next week. Yeah, so we're going to be hanging out with Ben Holmes, aka Mr. Whiteboard on Twitter if you haven't seen him. So looking forward to that. And yeah, just check out the rest of the schedule. We got Jessica Wilkins coming up, who's from my virtual coffee. She's a career changer too. From a oboist in a orchestra to software dev at this.labs now. So like really excited to be talking to her about all the stuff she's been doing as well as at Free Code Camp. So yeah, definitely check out that stuff. So, and yeah, thanks again, Emmett, and we'll see you all next week.
yeah, see ya.